everybody. Under this chapter, I'd like to elaborate a little bit more on the concept of public diplomacy, particularly definition or concept or basic understanding of public diplomacy. I think it's very important in my view. I'd like to elaborate a little bit more in terms of picking up so-called branding marketing idea in commercial area. I think we can pick up that theory or practice of branding into public diplomacy. Particularly the wording, nation brand, even though I mentioned a little bit in the first part of our chapter, but I think this concept is very important in my view. So we can discuss a little bit on nation brand. What is it? How it works? How each and every country would like to improve and project this nation brand in a positive way, or in a way to maximize their national influence in many aspects. So nation brand, this concept has been developed, last probably 1 or 2 decades. This concept was discussed and introduced by many countries, but it was systematically introduced into public diplomacy area by the very specific and expertise have companies, so-called like brand finance and other international organization. Originally, they would like to focus on business influence or commercial and trade and cooperation influence by many big companies around the world. But I think they expand their area of research into nation brand. So, for example, very famous organization called Brand Finance. They announced every year on who are which countries are top level of nation brand countries around the world. So they have been doing, I think, more than 10 years. Let me, show you one latest their announcement on 2018 top 10, 12, or 20 nation brand countries in the world. Maybe you can imagine, which countries are on top area of this nation brand around the world. Naturally, United States will be first, right? And followed by, you can guess which country, China, because of their rising power recently. I think China is in second place in this nation brand power, followed by Germany, Great Britain, and Japan, France, Canada, Italy, India, and 10th place, you can imagine which country is occupying this 10th place, South Korea, Republic of Korea. In this order, you can imagine that the superpowers or major powers will play an important role in this top 10 nation brand countries. Interestingly enough, I think South Korea is now placing 10th place after I think they are starting 16th place in 5 years ago, but now they are advancing quite quickly. This was one analysis of this announcement that Korea is very incredible, and remarkably they are occupying 10th place even during such a short period of time, 5 years from 16th place to 10th place. The question is how they can calculate or analyze this so-called the order of this influence of nation brand. They are putting all important factors like goods, services, trade, investment power, or society, or soft power. What is the governance power, and how their cultural influence is overwhelming compared to other countries. So all those important elements were introduced and analyzed by experts, and they put this kind of order. I think this is important in terms of general power brand of major nation around the world. But I think there are many different ways to categorize those powers, which are, this is general power, but I think there is some cultural power or business power or military power. You can, categorize in different, area. And also, this is a, objective analysis by certain special organization like brand finance. But at the same time, we can distinguish this analysis with some countries' own policy and strategy to augment or increase their nation brand, right? Particularly, they are having specific logo or slogan, as you imagine, like India has been using so-called Incredible India for last almost, I think, 10 years. And Great Britain, they are using this word great by putting it a lot of their specialty or interest, like, education is great, or culture is great, or knowledge is great, and something like that. So that was the, nation brand strategy or tactic by Great Britain. For example, like Japan has been using Cool Japan for last, I think, almost 10 years or so. This cool adjective was used by Britain first a long time ago, several decades of Cool Britain. But it was now picked up by Japan. They've been using this Cool Japan for, I think, several years. When it comes to Korea has been using, maybe you recall, Dynamic Korea for a long period of time, and followed by Creative Korea shortly. And also, there is a general nation brand image or strategy or logo or slogan. But at the same time, there is a specific purpose of, for this slogan for tourism. Maybe you recall some like a tourism slogan. In Korea, for example, Korea Sparkling or Sparkling Korea, you heard this logo slogan around 10 years ago. Recently, there is Imagine Your Korea, something like that. And for some Asian country, Malaysia, for example, we call it Truly Asia. And for Sri Lanka, they use Wonder of Asia. So there are many, almost all countries around the world, they are using so-called the slogan to attract tourists to their countries. This is a part of their nation brand, we can say, but this is more focused on tourism attraction, like landscape or scenery, or their cultural attraction to invite more tourists to their countries. So this tourism slogan or logos could be part of their nation brand, but I don't think this is truly represent the image, reputation of that particular country. So many countries are trying to put this slogan and logo, two way. One is just objective, description or explanation of their country, what their country is doing and where they are. This is one area of nation brand. The other part of nation brand is they are trying to put some strategy or national vision for next several decades. So in first case, they are trying to describe as clear as possible to reflect their real situation of that country, right? Our country is doing this thing and that thing. But this second part of strategic nation brand and for future, visionary objective, I think this area is more important than first part, because this is a certain, specific public diplomacy strategy of that country to aim much further goal for their country to be certain country, right? To represent certain, image or value or certain vision for their country and people. So many countries recently are trying to focus on this strategic or visionary public diplomacy goal with their own nation brand. Of course, many countries, almost all countries in the world would like to have a better nation brand than before. But as I told you before in previous chapter, there are two ways of promoting their nation brand. First, you have to have good contents and value, from your inside of your country, to have a good, democratic institutions and rule of law and open society, and reflecting, all universal values from UN charters. So this good asset and good contents and good values in your country can make your public diplomacy strategy or nation brand strategy more workable and more comfortable than the other case. The other case is some countries would like to promote their nation brand or national image in a way to sometimes divert or detour their negative national image and hide something or camouflage some their weak point of that particular country. So in this case, it's not easy to be prevailed in eventual way, because that strategy has certain limitation. I don't think this can be sustainable to attract the hearts and minds of ordinary people of around the world. So even though we are picking up this idea as like a marketing strategy of branding or similar marketing strategy, but it is totally different from marketing strategy, because in marketing area there are many different alternative way or subsidiary way or complementary way to compensate or mitigate the very difficult situation of that particular company. Sometimes we are making good publicity with a very strategic way. There is like a boom of a big hit of a certain product or thing. But in this nation brand thing, compared to branding strategy of ordinary commercial area, it's very serious, and it's difficult to make a very sustainable image or reputation and perception of that particular country. I can give you some example. For example, like in difference between branding strategy and nation brand strategy is that in commercial area, for example, if there is a problem of certain product in automobile or any product or water, mineral water, there is a way to evade that problem, to resolve that problem, so-called recall. Recall is very interesting, idea, right? To recall every product from automobile, or sometimes we have some, many automobile brand, right? Toyota or many important brand like even Korean brand Hyundai. They sometimes do recall. And also I heard like a Perrier, a very famous mineral water brand in several decades ago, they have been like a total recall of some that they found defection in that water. So recall is a way of withdrawal of all their previous product or image, right? And then renew it and then regenerate with a new image. I think now many automobile companies, even Perrier, is in good shape, recovering their previous problem or fault. But in nation brand area, it's not easy. I can say there is no recall even in nation brand strategy, because the country's image or reputation or nation brand could be fixed with a certain situation, or it cannot be done in very simple, it cannot be changed in simple way of like recall case in commercial area. So you should be very careful in taking certain policy or action toward other country, or taking certain foreign policy. If you make a mistake, your national image or nation brand or perception will be drastically weakened, and it's really difficult to recover that nation brand and reputation and image. So this is a similarity with the branding strategy in commercial area, but at the same time there is a clear difference with this commercial branding strategy. And also the area of perception, reputation, image, those three concepts as I mentioned in previous chapter, because public diplomacy is dealing with the perception, reputation, and image of that particular country by ordinary people of other country. This is a very difficult and moving target to have a proper reputation image that country A would like to have, but the people of country B or people of country C will have much different perception and reputation image. So it's difficult to achieve that aim of country A. And at the same time, the perception, reputation, image will be decided by many different factors. I can say, multifaceted approach. It cannot be done. It's just like a simple factor in branding theory in marketing. It could be done in many different factors, as I mentioned in nation brand, big power 10 countries. But in perception, reputation, image area, we have to take into account the country situation and political situation of that country. That is the first important thing, right? If there is a mature politics or advanced democratic institutions and a good parliamentary system, I think a general perception and reputation image will get a very good score. I think this is a area we have to give a very good portion of deciding in this perception, reputation, image. Second part is societal situation of that particular country, whether that country is motivated by certain customs, practices, or mindset of people. What is the general social order? What is general social practice of that particular country? Is it just open, or is it just closed, or is it just inclusive, or that the nature or character of society is important. Third area is economic situation, whether that country is economically mature or open or prosperous, right? And giving us a good asset on cultural or economic area. I think this is an important area because the business area or everyday commercial activities are affecting each other, right? So if they have very, good economic rules or norms or institutions, like opening their society, their culture or economic situation to other countries, and there is no problem to invest that country with a sound, return system or economic system. I think general perception and reputation and image will be increased. And finally, cultural area. For Korea, for example, we have good reputation based on K-pop or K-drama or movie, those traditional and contemporary cultural thing. Like for example, like France, they will get a very good score on cultural thing. Culture will give a general, good, pleasant, joyful sense to the young people. Of course, all people. But at the same time, this will give a good mark to that particular country because they think that cultural depth and cultural prosperity and abundance of that particular country could be received a good score on their cultural heritage or cultural advancement because this will tell their civilization and cultural heritage from for long several thousand years. So all those political, social, economic, cultural factors, as well as people's general character or nature, will be working as a multifaceted way to converge towards certain perception, reputation, image of that country. So this is a preoccupation of these days to almost all countries. They would like to improve their national image so that they can improve nation brand. Eventually, they will achieve good public diplomacy strategy. So this is where we are on nation brand at this moment. Thank you very much.